So, a very warm welcome to all of you. Jai Hind and welcome to the daily current affairs and MCQ series. I believe that you all are doing good. Let's get started. The most 5 relevant articles we are going to discuss. So, the first article talks about, now with the coming of the Omicron variant and also to expand the coverage of vaccine amongst the population, the government has decided, the Ministry of Health and Family Affairs itself and the Prime Minister have said that the children between the age group of 15 to 17 are going to be administered with Covaxin, right? So what becomes important from your prelims perspective is what is the recommendations by the World Health Organization, the various COVID vaccines, the status of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and the mutations and the new variants, right? Because all these are inextricably linked. हर एक चीज जो है linked है आपस में, because one thing is certainly leading to the another, right? And that is where you have the new variant in the form of Omicron, right, which has now caused again concerns on the front of the COVID, and you all are witnessing that the restrictions are gradually again being put into place, right? Okay, so with respect to that, the current notification from the government says that the health workers, the frontline workers who have received already their 2 doses, they will be eligible for another precaution dose, right, from the 17th of January. Apart from that, the people who are between the age group of 15 to 17, remember it was earlier the age group above the age of 18 years to 45 years, and the another age group which happened to be the senior citizens or beyond the age of 45 years, which were earlier administered the doses, right? Now this is going to be the, you can say, the adolescent population, which is below 18 but above 15, right, who are going to be administered the doses of Covaxin after January 3rd. Here you need to pay your attention that it is only going to be Covaxin, right? The government has not talked about the Covishield or even the Sputnik, right? So it is not neither the Covishield nor Sputnik. It is only Covaxin जिसके बारे में सरकार ने कहा है that they are going to administer to this age group. Apart from that, if we talk about how the intermixing between the 2 doses can be done, so on that front also the World Health Organization, WHO, has noted that homologous and heterologous, or heterologous and the homologous, both the kinds of mixtures are going to provide you effectivity against the virus, right? That is, if the vaccine is containing, or both the doses are going to be of the same kind, and if there is a mixture of vaccines which you do, right, then both the combinations are going to be immunologically effective, right? That is, they are going to prevent the disease. Apart from that, what the World Health Organization has said that all the data until this point of time, abhi tak jo data available hai, depending upon that data, there is a strong immunological response which is elicited when a 3rd dose is administered, right? But this data is insufficient, and neither are the studies which are being conducted. They have assessed that what is the duration of this response, that is, for how long this response, this immunological response that has generated, is going to stay, right? So that is where the, you can say, limitation lies, right? But nonetheless, still it is going to be having strong immunological response. That itself is sufficient for providing you basic protection against the different variants or different mutations of the virus, right? So that is with respect to this article. Let's take a question now. Yes, so which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to COVID vaccination in India? First, currently the only vaccines that have been administered to Indians are Covishield, Covaxin and a few doses of Sputnik 5. Second, Bharat Biotech's Covaxin will be the only vaccine that will be administered to eligible recipients in the age group of 15 to 18 years. And third, the composition of both Covishield and Covaxin include the inactivated adenovirus that is found in chimpanzees. Yes, so good morning all. Good morning Shubhankar, Pranjal. Good morning Kumar Chandrakant, Varsha, Winkle. Good morning Kumar Chandrakant. Good morning Rohit. Good morning Ritik. Ritik, I'm going to cater to your particular query at the end of the session, right? Don't worry about that. Yes, please mark your answers. So Rohit is saying D and Shubhankar is saying B. Chaliye, theek hai. I'll just wait for a couple of seconds for the rest of you to mark your answers quickly. See, when you talk about precisely the first statement, then certainly in India right now you are having only these 3 vaccines on dealing with the COVID situation which are administered, right? So that is correct. The Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, they have not been granted any emergency use authorization, or they have not been rolled out for the purposes of administering to the population, right? Then Bharat Biotech's co-vaccine certainly right now is the only candidate for this age group to be given, right, starting January 3. And last, that is the composition of both Covishield and Covaxin. They do not include inactivated adenovirus. See, this virus is present only as far as the Covishield is concerned. This is not present in Covaxin. ठीक है, तो इसलिए third जो है that is incorrect, and your answer will be 1 and 2 only are correct, right? So that is with respect to all these statements. So if you compare the Covishield and Covaxin, they certainly, Covishield includes inactivated adenovirus which is found in chimpanzees, but when you talk about Covaxin, it includes just the inactivated coronavirus. So one is inactivated and one is attenuated, right? So that is the difference between the Covishield and Covaxin, right? So I believe that is clear to you, because when you talk about Covishield, it is, you know, using the viral vector platform, and it includes modifying this particular virus in chimpanzee, that is the adenovirus, which carries the COVID-19 spike protein and which induces your immune system to get, you know, active and elicit the required response to fight the virus. So that is how this vaccine precisely works, right? So that is with respect to the latest on the COVID front. Let's move to the next article. Yes. So there are multiple articles these days which are being, you know, being reported on a daily basis that talk about the revival of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that is the Iran nuclear deal, and certainly that is also reverberating across the Gulf countries, that is the Gulf Cooperation Council, right? Because these countries, see, when you talk about the Gulf Cooperation Council, then the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, the GCCs, they are having a direct interests, they are the direct stakeholders when the stability in that region is concerned, right? Certainly the Iranians or the Iranian deal that has been, you know, stuck off because when the US withdrew itself from the deal, and that has caused some amount of instability in the region, also impinging upon the interests of the countries which are a part of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So Tehran is seeking assurance as Vienna nuclear talks resume. So let's take what is the relevant here from your prelims perspective. So first things first, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that is the Iran nuclear deal, then the Gulf Cooperation Council, and the interests of our own country, which are also associated with how the Iran nuclear deal revives, right? So when you talk about what Iran is demanding right now, it is demanding two things. First, that is lifting the sanctions which were placed by the US on Iran, and a guarantee that US is going to return to the JCPOA, right? That is, America, US जो है, it will come back to the JCPOA, because certainly Iran wants that kind of assurance, and it also needs a commitment that the sanctions will be lifted off, the sanctions will be removed. Then when we talk about the US, you know, under the presidentship of Donald Trump in 2018, the US had withdrawn from the Iran nuclear deal. So was the pressure that was put on, you know, the other European countries also, which are a part of this deal, that the European countries also did not do much to provide any kind of respite to the Iranians from the sanctions, the economic crippling which was, you know, just imposed on Iran by the US, right? But now the case seems to be a little more flexible, because now you have the Biden administration, right? Then when you talk about the relations between Iran and the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, now see, this is not just important from your prelims perspective, but this is also important from your international relations mains perspective. Why? Because certainly how the relation has evolved between Iran and Gulf Cooperation Council is a point of interest in the international events which are happening, right? And in this particular case, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, they had filed or they had felt estranged first by the Trump administration, and now this is continuing somewhat under the Biden administration also. So what exactly the Gulf cooperation countries or the Gulf GCC countries are right now feeling, or they have been feeling for the past 3-4 years, is that they need to be masters of their own destiny. Why am I saying that? Why? Because the GCC feels that the US has left them to fend for their own interests in the region, right? Particularly after the withdrawing of the US from the Iranian nuclear deal, the Iran nuclear deal, and that is why the GCC feels that they should be taking their destiny in their own hands and try to reforge, rebuild, and build up the ties with Iran. And that is why you had UAE, United Arab Emirates, in 2019 reaching out to Iran. So was the case with Saudi Arabia, that they and Iran have had 5 meetings since last year in Baghdad, and mainly the thing is to rebuild confidence between both the countries, re-establish diplomatic ties, right? So what exactly is happening, that Iran on the one hand and the GCC countries on the other hand, notwithstanding what the US does, are trying to reforge their ties, and that is certainly good for the stability of the region, right? And if you have a stable Iran, if you have the revival, reinstatement or revival of the JCPOA, then certainly India's oil concerns, right? Remember that we were arm twisted, our nose was just rubbed into the ground almost. That was happened because when India was told to zero out their imports, the oil imports from Iran, right? That is an arrangement which certainly benefits our country. Why? Because we have a rupee denominated understanding when we import oil from Iran. So all that came to a halt, right? So that is where Indian interests are also concerned. And apart from that, you also have the Chabahar port, right? So bear all those things in mind, and that is why I was saying that it is not just prelims but also mains, from which perspective it is important, right? Chaliye. So that is for the discussion. Let's move to the question now. Hanji, which of the following statements is or are not correct with respect to the Gulf Cooperation Council? First, the GCC nations account for 3/4 of the oil reserves of the world. Second, the council also has objectives of military cooperation. And third, along with the US, some of the GCC countries are participating at the JCPOA revival talks with Iran. Yes, so please mark your answers. Even if you don't, even if you don't exactly know the correct or incorrect statements, at least try guessing the answer. Because certainly, see, you need to hone your skills when it comes to intelligent guessing. ठीक है, generally ऐसा ही होता है UPSC में. It is not always that you will be knowing all the options, but still you cannot just leave the questions, right? You have to, if you have to be in the race, you need to mark a certain number of questions. चलिए, so B and C are the answers which I can see. Okay, Gurpreet is saying B. Okay, great. Tremendous response. Glad to see that. Fine. So first thing, when you talk about the the GCC countries, then they not account for 3/4, but they account for 1/3 of the oil reserves of the world. So the first statement is incorrect. Then second statement, that is they also have objectives of military cooperation. That is true. Why? Because as early as the 1984 they had formed the Peninsula Shield, right, which was a cooperation on the military front, that is the Peninsula Shield, right? And this was formed by the GCC as early as the 1984. So since the GCC is in news, you must be aware of some basic facts about the GCC, and this is one such fact which people generally tend to ignore. Then the third statement, that is along with the United States, some of the GCC countries are also participating in the Vienna talks. So that is incorrect. None of the GCC countries are participating in that, right, in the Vienna talks. So third statement will be incorrect. So आपका answer क्या होगा? First and third, that is answer will be A. Why? Because incorrect, right? I believe this is clear. Please type a yes in the comment box if this is clear to you. ठीक है? चलिए. So please brush up your facts regarding the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, as also the JCPOA, right? Great. So that is in front of you. You can take a look at this in the PDFs that will be forwarded to you, that will be shared in the Telegram group, right? I believe that you all have joined the Telegram group, जिसका जो लिंक है वो डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में मिल जाएगा. अगर जो लोग कुछ नए जुड़े हैं आज हमारे साथ, if they do not know of, or if they are not aware of the Telegram channel that we are having, then please take a look at the link in the description box. Okay, so coming back to this, so as far as the military cooperation is concerned, certainly, you know, as early as 1984 they had formed the Peninsula Shield, a joint military force of the GCC, right? But beyond that, obviously this could not, you know, be taken further. But yes, this is certainly one thing that is for sure, which tells that they also intend to have a military cooperation. Then when you talk about the USS re-entry to the JCPOA, so there are two players, that is Israel and the 6 states of the GCC, which are directly having their interests related to the revival of the JCPOA, but which are not participating in the JCPOA, right? Or which are not participating in the talks for the revival of JCPOA, right? So that is with respect to the question number 2. Let's move to the next article now, that is the aid which India has sent to Mozambique, right? The defense equipment, the food aid, the country is battling, Mozambique is battling through multiple challenges, and that is where India, you know, as a goodwill gesture also and as a responsible country in the Committee of Nations, has extended its assistance to Mozambique. So what is of relevance from prelims is Mission Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region. I believe you are aware of this, security and growth for all in the region. Then the particular INS Kesari that was used. Apart from that, the international events of significance, which India is also a part of, right? So right now you have, you know, India has handed over the fast interceptor craft and other self-defense equipment to Mozambique. Since the country is, you know, witnessing terror threats also, it is also grappling other disasters also, right? So with respect to that, India has come to the aid of Mozambique, right? So that is a brief about it. Other things we are going to discuss through this question. So please consider the following statements vis-a-vis Mission Sagar, जो यहाँ पे ज़्यादा relevant है हमारे लिए exam perspective से. That is, under this mission, ships have been deployed to as many as 15 friendly countries by Indian Navy since May 2020. Second, INS Kesari also visited the Port Sahid Bahonar to deliver aid and relief materials. And third, the port of Sahid Bahonar is situated in Oman. Shitija, I'll look into that. Okay, I am not aware with respect to that prelims booster thing which you are asking. I'll get a confirmation to you on that. Okay, so हाँ जी, answers सभी लोगों के. Okay, Shitra says B. Yes, the rest of you. Aftab says C. Okay. Okay, so we have B, C and D as the answers until this point of time. ठीक है. देखिए, see, as far as, you know, okay, as far as the Mission Sagar is concerned, so under this Mission Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region, that is precisely this acronym translates into, right? Under this initiative, India has until May 2020 assisted as many as 15 countries, right? 15 foreign countries. So that is the statement from the Indian Navy itself. So that is correct. The second statement, that is INS Kesari also visited Port Sahid Bahonar. So when you talk about this particular port, it was INS Sudarshani that was in news recently only. It was not INS Kesari, but rather it was INS Sudarshani, right, which visited Port Sahid Bahonar. And this port is not in Oman. Yes, can anybody type it in the comment box? This port is not in Oman. This is what I am telling you. So second and third happen to be incorrect. आपका आंसर हो जाएगा A. Correct statement पूछिए आपसे, right? Select the correct statement. So answer will be A for question number 3. But my question to you is, where is this Port Sahid Bahunar? It is a very famous port. Yes, exactly. It is in Iran. And where in Iran? It is in Iran. That is true. But where in Iran? In, yes, किसी ने comment किया अभी तक? No, Vikrant, it is not in Saudi. It is not in Saudi. It is in Iran, right? And it is in the near the Bandar Abbas port in Iran itself. ठीक है? तो आपका आंसर यहाँ पे क्या हो जाएगा? First only, because second and third are incorrect, right? And it was INS Sudarshini, which visited Iran and this port, right? चलिए, so that is with respect to INS Kesari, which had undertaken the mission or other various missions between May and June 2020 to provide assistance to Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, Comoros, including deployment of even the medical assistance, right? And apart from that, the Navy has issued this statement also, which we have discussed as a part of the question itself, right? Yes, 8 kilometers from Bandar Abbas, right? And the other is INS Sudarshini, which was in news recently, right? Because they are assisting the efforts in the Gulf region as a part of the deployment by the Indian Navy, right? And these navies have also, the Iranians have also took a look of the INS Sudarshini so as to get acquainted, right? Chaliye. So that is with respect to both of these INS or both of these Indian naval ships and that article. But if you want to take a look at the location also, then here you have certainly, this is Mozambique, right now where INS Kesari has been assisting. And if you want to talk about the precise port, then it was the port of Maputo. This is precisely here, right? This location here, this is the port where INS Kesari was right now sent to, right? So that is with respect to the map-based understanding, right? And then certainly moving forward, चलिए इसको आप एक बार दोबारा रिवाइज कर सकते हैं PDF में, right? So the next article talks about the world economy to top or to go beyond 100 trillion in 2022 for the first time. That is a report that has been, that has quoted this particular development, this particular prediction. And with respect to your exam, what becomes important is what is the state of the world economy, the impact it is going to have on the Indian economy, and the various forecasts that have been made, not just with respect to the world economy, but also in respect to the Indian economy. So this is a British consultancy by the name of CEBR, which has released this report as to how the world economy is going to perform over the next decade, right? So what they have said is that for the first time, the output is going to cross $100 trillion. And apart from that, they have said that for China to overtake the United States of America, it is going to take a little longer than was expected or than was anticipated by some of the other agencies in the world. ठीक है कि USA को फर्स्ट पोजीशन से नॉकआउट करने के लिए चाइना को थोड़ा सा टाइम लगेगा, राइट? बट सर्टनली इट सेज दैट it is going to become the number 1 economy in the world, right? So that is the basic of this article. Fine, let's now take a question, because what it has said regarding India also we are going to take a look at through this question itself. So consider the following statements in relation to a report recently released by the British consultancy CEBR. First, India looks set to overtake France next year and then Britain in 2023 to regain its place as the world's 6th biggest economy. And second, China will become the top economy globally in dollar terms in 2030. Hanji, please mark your answers quickly. What do you think is the right statement? Okay, so you guys feel that Shalini is saying D and Aftab is saying C. Okay, Ahana says C as well. ठीक है, great. That means you are aware with respect to this particular article. चलिए ठीक है. So we have given ample opportunity to all of you to mark your answers. कुछ लोग D type कर रहे हैं, कुछ लोग B, and some of you have typed D as your answers. ठीक है. See, when you talk about the predictions as far as the domestic economy or India is concerned, right? So what they have said is that India is set to overtake France the next year, that is in 2022 itself, if we continue to grow the way we are, and if there are no large disruptions in the Indian economy, right? If the COVID situation also remains the way it is, right? It does not get it does not further deteriorate from here where we are standing right now, and there are no other economic restrictions which are, which the government is forced to impose. So given that scenario, we are certainly in 2022, by this prediction of the CEBR and the analysis, we are going to overtake France, and then in 2023 we are going to surpass Britain also to regain our position as the 6th biggest economy in the world, right? So that is one fact. And second, certainly that they have predicted that 2 years earlier, or 2 years, sorry, 2 years later than the earlier forecast by World Economic League table report, right, which had said that somewhere near 2028, that is 2028, China would displace US as the world's biggest economy. So that has been delayed. Certainly COVID has a role to play in it, and also some other factors. The destabilization in China, inflation in China, both are high. China is also facing its own economic woes, right? And because of that, this 2-year delay regarding China displacing US as the top economy in the world, right? So coming back to our question, first certainly is going to be right, and second is also going to be right. So your answer will be C, right? Yeah, I believe that is clear. ठीक है, जिन लोगों ने D mark किया था, you were required to mark the correct answer, correct statements, right? This is the correct statement only. This must be read as correct statement, right? So the correct statements are both in case of question number 4. चलिए, great. This is a typing error. This should have been C. This is a typing error. I'll make it sure that it is corrected in the PDF. चलिए, so moving to the last question for the day, which is a location based question. Yes. Yeah, Shitija, I got that. ठीक है, चलिए, question number 5. The port of Dalian, which was recently seen in news, is located in Indonesia, Malaysia, People's Republic of China, or the Philippines? Yes. So what do you think is the answer here? Okay. So some are saying, all are saying C. Great. Glad to see that. So certainly it is the People's Republic of China only where this port of Dalian is located. And why was it in news? Why was it in news? Because China is being accused of hoarding multiple or food grains in excess of what is actually required by the Chinese population, and this precise hoarding has led to an inflation or a rise in the cost of food grains world over, including the impact which India is facing, right? Certainly anything anywhere in the world economy has to do with whatever is happening in your domestic scenario. So given that particular point, India is also facing a general rise in the prices, that is inflation on the food grains front and also other fronts, right? Because everything has a cascading impact or has a cascading effect, right? So when you talk about this cascading effect, that reverberates across the sectors, that reverberates across multiple countries in the world, and that is where it impacts the interests of India as well. and that is why it is important from your prelims perspective, right? So that is the article that talks about China holding half of the world's food grains, pushing up not just the prices in the continent but also globally, right? And apart from that, the COFCO group, is being accused of stockpiling these bases, right? So you can give it a read in the PDF, and this is how the comparison shows that how China has gone on to hoard these prices, right? So that is the China's share of global grain stocks, and you can see the red soybeans, this yellow or brownish is wheat, this is rice, and this purple is maize, right? So you can see right from 2011 to 2021 till the end of 2021, all these are at their highs, right? That is how the graphs have risen for all the commodities, right? So that is how you can see this graph tells you all the data which is based on the USDA resources or USDA data, that China has gone on to hoard food grains and pushed up the prices globally for all the commodities, right? So that is the analysis which substantiates that point. If you talk about this location, so certainly on this coast that is near to the North Korea and South Korean continent, or the Korean continent, here you have the port of Dalian, which was in news right now, right? That is on the northwestern side of China, right? So that is with respect to the location, right? So with that, we have come to the end of this session. Please hit that like button, right, if you are of the view that you gained something out of it, and that is all for us, right? So on that note, Jai Hind, thank you so much, and bye bye, and I'll see you tomorrow, right?